Oh, hey, it's time to talk about Eric Hoffer and The True Believer. It's our next wonderful, wonderful book we're going to do for the Tokyo Philosophical Society.
All
So,
right.
yeah, this is a famous one. Um, it kind of became popular again after 9/11. And people were picking it up because of the Tea Party and uh, the Occupy movement. People were quoting it left and right for all the mass movements going on.
Yeah, it seems to get a lot of press from people that don't like someone else's mass movement,
I know, right?
right?
Who
And if I
belong
saw,
to kind of another mass movement, but yeah,
like, it'd be kind of funny, like, if this book just said your mass movement sucks, right?
yeah. No, your mass movement sucks.
Oh, okay, video over.
Yeah.
We've said all there's to say. Yeah, this is gonna have to. This can kind of segue into, I guess, what we're gonna have to get. This is kind of like a psychological examination of what mass movements are and the kind of people that would join a mass movement and why you would do that. Unfortunately, this time we can only talk about part one.
Yeah.
As we've kind of limited ourselves this time a little bit. It's a very short part of the book.
Just total of 4 parts, by the way.
Yes.
So part one is going to be the topic is interesting.
Yeah.
The entire topic of part one is why do mass movements appeal to people? But I mean, even though that's the topic of part one, it's just kind of it's teasing you a little bit. I mean, there's much more to come later on. I think much more I'd like to discuss. Um,
So I
so
guess maybe we can just talk. I just want to talk a little bit about his writing. I mean, like he says in the preface, right? This is not meant to be a judgment, or he says, I'm not going to
yes,
make any judgments about mass movements. I'm just going to analyze the kind of people that would go join a mass movement. But wow, I love his writing style. It's the kind of style where you just want to scream judgments, even though he won't give them to you. You kind
yeah,
of like, oh, how could you want to yell at these people, but he's able to maintain this kind of, well, he didn't like the word, but icy objectivity, or at least he wants to hold back judgments, because I think he's a little bit of both, right? He's kind of the Eric Hoffer has got a little bit of the true believer in him, and he calls himself a passionate man,
yeah.
right? So he knows very well what the passionate state of mind is and what a true believer is, because he's got a little bit of that inside himself. So I don't know, even though it comes across as very critical
Yeah.
of the true believer, there are hints, there are moments that you can kind of dig out a praise, a slight possibilities of being able to praise the true believer, like the possibility of opening up the future. But
Yes.
let's wait for that a little bit. So
Yeah.
we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves here. I guess the first part is going to have to be, what kind of person would join a mass movement?
Yeah. Um,
I wrote it down. You wanna?
Me too. I mean, it's kind of he has a nifty little formula, I guess you could almost say, for the kind of person who would join a mass movement. Uh, but I guess at the core of it is frustration, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which is a wonderful, wonderful transition from Epictetus. So Epictetus wouldn't be joining mass movements, I guess. The guy here is frustrated for some reason or other.
Right. I mean, and this is what I was trying to focus and narrow in on. And I know he's not this kind of thinker. He's not a thinker that's going to give me, and he doesn't need to either, I think, a precise definition. I mean, frustration is broad enough, just broad enough that it covers it. But he gives hints. I mean, he says things like they feel like their life is spoiled.
Yeah.
He says that they can't find purpose in
Yeah.
self-advancement. And they kind of feel like they don't have any pride, confidence, hope, purpose, or worth.
Yep.
They want to have a new life or be reborn. And it's I don't know, what really is fascinating to me was that they can't see any reason to advance themselves. Right?
Yes.
That's what I really felt was really interesting, is the people that would join a mass movement, they don't believe that, studying themselves and researching and looking into the world and trying to do something, that's just not interesting enough for them anymore. Right?
I mean, it's interesting how this works on kind of different levels too, in the sense that some people are just totally outward centered. So like they're kind of unthinking. Like if something's wrong with their life, they just blame the world. Like the world sucks because I'm unhappy. So you get these kind of real unreflective types. But also, I mean, I think this analysis could apply to even like a real legitimate problem, which is like one where an individual can't make a difference, right? Like let's say like a women's movement or something, right? Like an individual can't make a difference there. I mean, there is maybe, and this is going to be gotten into later. Like there are sometimes legitimate means to use a mass movement, and there is no room for the self to advance in this movement per se. Also, I just liked how it could be applied in like different situations, good and bad.
Right. I mean, like this is how I'm like I feel sad sometimes that the Republicans, when they pick up this book, they kind of misuse it a little bit. I think because, okay, we can call lots of things mass movements. I try to make a list of mass movements like fascism, communism, the Tea Party, nationalism, cults, any kind of religion, at least in the early stages of it. Could you call Anonymous a mass movement in a certain way? Maybe.
I was thinking maybe of including Anonymous kind of in it.
The civil rights movement.
Yeah.
Feminism.
Yeah.
The men's rights movement. Islam.
Yeah.
But some of these seem legitimate, and some of them don't.
Yeah.
And I guess I wish more people would take this as kind of a warning than anything else. Like, if you put people in a place where they feel like they can't do anything for themselves, or whatever they do is meaningless, they're always going to be seen as worthless, or they don't have any pride in who they are. If you put them in this situation, you're really playing with fire. And when you hold an entire race down, or if you hold women out of powerful positions, you're simply making a breeding ground for resentment. And I'll just say legitimate resentment.
Yeah. And a kind of a fanaticism.
Yeah.
It breeds a fanaticism. Even, I mean, I don't know. This is really touchy. I mean, like, I want to leave room for these legitimate mass movements, but like, there is a kind of psychology. Maybe you could be fanatical about a legitimate movement. Also, I mean, the moral claims aside, right? Maybe you could really just be gung ho, die hard into this cause and willing to throw your life for it. Just this psychology itself, I think, still applies.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't by any means say that these are illegitimate things,
Yeah.
which is interesting. He just kind of suggests, well, like, he says basically something that really struck me, and I was trying to resist it at first. He said, well, these are all born from frustration. I was like, really? All of them? All of them. But, I mean, yes, but sometimes it's more legitimate frustration than others.
Yeah.
I mean, just because you didn't get that tax break you wanted, well, maybe that's not a reason to, start destroying healthcare, maybe. But, when your human rights are denied and you're not allowed to work in a position you want to be because of your gender, say in the 1930s, well, one of these seems like a more appropriate frustration than others to me.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I guess the problem is, like, I mean, to make this work, I mean, to walk this fine line, you need a definition of man, don't you?
Yeah.
You need a definition of what it is that makes a human life livable, or at least it's not excessive, but it's not so miserable that you're basically, being screwed every moment, and then the guys are above are like saying, well, deal with it, man.
Yeah.
Right?
I guess I kind of, wow, this is going to sound like really, this might sound terrible, this might sound kind of elitist, but like, this is why, and maybe I'll put some links in for this, but this is why I put those videos up, like, about like these guys who go to these rallies, these political rallies, like these Glenn Beck rallies, and even the Daily Show rally, the rally to restore sanity. I mean, the thing is, I mean, a lot of people there really haven't given it a lot of thought. They're just angry and frustrated. I mean, and when you ask them like what in particular, they're kind of like, freedom and stuff, and you're kind of like, oh, I. It seems like, yeah. I mean, I maybe there's this kind of like, this is why I think Kaufman works here too. Maybe you could legitimately get in, like he talked about it, like how one kind of decidophobia was joining a movement, and he even mentions Hoffer in here. But like you can have legitimate reasons. You can, as long as you keep those legitimate reasons. I mean, you could be insulated, maybe, against becoming a fanatic.
Right. I mean, he suggests that like these true believers, in a crazy way, it stops even being self-interest.
Yeah.
Right. There's not a practical reason sometimes. For example, the poor in the videos, right? The poor, lower class white people that are attracted to a movement that works financially, at the very least, in the interest of the very powerful and the very, very wealthy. And it just on the very surface. On the very surface, it seems like they've basically thrown away their practical advantage to kind of leech off of the pride of being an American, I guess is what they think. It's a kind of a nationalism. I don't know. The Tea Party, that after watching those videos, and I watched a couple more separately, I mean, the Tea Party almost seems like a pseudo-religious movement. It's not even a political movement. It's a pseudo-religious revival.
This is where I was kind of I like it. He even mentioned in here. You mentioned how like some of these can transition over, like a nationalist movement can transition into a religious, or religious can transition into a nationalist movement. These kind of, it gets in this weird zone where they all get mixed up, and maybe what is at the core of all this is this fanatic, right? This kind of fanaticism, and then like this religious fanaticism and this nationalistic fanaticism, they just resemble each other via this psychology, right at the core.
Right, he says that they're all interchangeable in the first chapter, and that's another thing that struck me, is like,
me too.
Really?
Yeah, that's kind of, I resist. I mean, I guess some of these people, I don't know. I mean, like some of these people at these rallies, when you ask them, well, so what don't you like about Obama? And they're like, no, he's against freedom. Right. I mean, that does seem like this person was a toss-up.
Right. I mean, isn't this where the wheat gets separated from the chaff? Right. Like, it's the people that don't know anything about Glenn Beck or Jon Stewart. They're the ones that are likely to be at the next Republican rally as a serious advocate. Right. I mean, these are the people that, like, I don't know. It seems to me like they're going to be the converts. Right. You confront this if somehow you were to get able to get through to a Tea Partier and just feed them this kind of a couple of facts that, like, oh my God, I've been deceived, and then they just do the same thing, except now they're a Democrat, right? Just completely oblivious of facts, but now they found a new name for their pain, and it's now what, conservatism or whatever, right? It's still, nothing has changed fundamentally. I mean, the sad part was that none of them, even though they proclaimed to be interested in politics, can name any single bill, at least the ones there. A lot of them there couldn't name a single bill that they wanted changed or any fact about the bill. And that has something to do with them being true believers and trying to blame maybe their position in life on something else. It also has a lot to do with mass media.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think we can't leave out the role of mass media. I want to talk about that too, but I mean, really, these people are just frustrated. I mean, that's it. These people are angry and frustrated, and they want to change. And I mean, I guess this is kind of what he's highlighting right in the first couple pages.
Yeah, he talks about in a little bit into the. I know we shouldn't talk about this, but part two. In a little bit into part two, he says that the new poor are converts, which these people that had power, but it's kind of been lost a little bit, a kind of a lost power, but still a power that they feel like they can change the world. They're not so destitute that they feel that they're just out in the open seas adrift, right? They're kind of a white middle class that's basically remained stagnant for the last 20 years or so, maybe more, and they're looking for a reason for that, and then someone's going to come along and tell them, well, the reason why, your life feels stagnant to you is because there's a black president. Well, I mean,
yeah.
yes, and he's robbed the honor of America, which I'm not even quite sure what that means.
Yeah. There's an honor bank and
Yeah, because
stole it right over
because countries aren't people. I don't know if I should have to say that.
there. No. This is what I kind of want to talk about this too a little bit. Like, so, like somebody like this, well, not all of them. I don't know. It gets in this zone where I'm not sure what to think because this person seems like he or she wouldn't be so interchangeable. You know what I mean? Like he's got these previous. I mean, maybe it all just falls back to like previous encounters with media, previous encounters with others. Like, and it is in a sense interchangeable in the sense that it was just like random happenstance. It wasn't thought through per se. It was just like frustration and like, oh, black people, I hate black people. Oh, so Obama's black, so I hate him now too, or something. I don't know, some kind of weird psychological thing is going on. I guess it's interchangeable in that sense, in the sense that it was just kind of just random circumstance. But that person, I don't see that person being a convert so quickly based on these previous stereotypes.
Yeah, I mean, it's just I think when he says that, he just means these people that are so loose that they don't really even understand the principles of the movement they're even a part of.
I know.
I mean, it's not unusual actually for like, you're on the internet, you're like, oh, I used to be one of you liberals. Now I'm this extreme conservative. Like, well, I just kind of sigh when I hear that. I'm like, oh wow, well, good for you.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why is that an argument, or like, oh, when Christians are online and they'll often say, well, I used to be an atheist too. I was the most extreme atheist ever, and now I'm a Christian. Well, you're kind of like, well, okay, but that's still not an argument, right? And even atheists will do the same thing. I was this heavy-duty Christian. Now I'm an atheist. Well, that's still not an argument, right? It doesn't prove anything. And sometimes these, especially seems like religious people more than often than not, use this as an argument. It's kind of an implied argument that, well, I've progressed, right? I don't know why.
Really, that kind of plays into it to a lot of like arguments they make about. They want to make like atheism's kind of childish and it's something you grow out of.
Yeah.
Right. It's like this rebellious son who finally becomes a man and a father, and he finds God once again. So I think it's a very attractive argument.
Yeah, the atheists do the same thing too.
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah. Those guys they play into the whole like religion was the childhood of man, and now we're finally coming into our own, right? So they want to flip the whole thing. Who's the adult here?
Like, I love how like manliness is being used as an argument, right? Like, well, I mean, manly or not, you're still going to die. So I mean, at least a little bit more sophisticated argument is necessary, and sometimes people just use that as a kind of, on the surface, well, I used to be one of you people, but now I'm not. My response is, I don't care, right? The sun has lots of gases on it, okay? And that's another fact too, right? Okay, what is it, like 27 million degrees Fahrenheit or something, right? Okay, I don't know what that has to do with anything. So yeah, I guess. Yeah, that frustrates me anyway.
Yeah. I thought like it was kind of like I said, I don't know how far I want to draw out some of this stuff, but a little while ago on TJ's channel, on the Amazing Atheist channel, the gamer guy did a video. You saw that?
The Investigamer.
Investigamer. He did a video on video games and religion. Did you see that? Yeah, like I mean, but like really the core of it, doesn't it boil down to a little bit like he's talking about being fanboy and stuff. I mean, this stuff is lurking in here too, right? I mean, really, it's religious people can be fanatics and video game people are fanatics too. I mean, that was the core of it, wasn't it? I mean, but this kind of fanatical element is really at the core of the problem, isn't it? This, or at least for him in that video, anyway.
Yeah, I mean, is it that people are all too willing to identify with something that they're not? I mean, isn't this what Epictetus would say? Well, you're trying to pretend to be something that you're not, or you're identifying with something that you're really not, or well, maybe he would say that you can't control.
You're not in control of. Yeah.
That you're not in control of. I mean, like, this is something I guess that liberals will never understand. And this is what Eric Hoffer understood, is that I guess sometimes you identify as a Christian and as an American before you identify yourself as yourself.
Mm.
And by that I mean an isolated economic individual. So, just giving people handouts and money is not going to be enough to motivate them to come to your side. Because people will put pride, meaning, and purpose above the dollar bill. And that's why handing out money to countries doesn't make them love us. It actually make them hate us. Because it hurts their pride so much to have to be grateful or to be thankful, right? Or, well, there's lots of different reasons, right? They feel like we've exploited them, but at any rate, like, give them something to share pride in, and they'll love you forever. Give them a handout, and they might even resent it. And like, because you're not, I mean, liberals have to stop thinking in this kind of, I don't know, robotic, computerized, atomized way that, like, oh, well, everyone is just an isolated individual, right? You couldn't possibly associate yourself with anything else, right?
Yeah.
No, some people actually identify themselves with their nation, right? Or as a Christian first. They'd rather sacrifice their buck than betray their Christianity, right?
This is really a problem considering the fact that, in general, I think liberals want to reach out to the trodden, to the downtrodden, right?
Yeah.
I mean, these are the very people who are frustrated and have spoiled selves and are trying to regain pride and confidence in themselves and are reaching out to these kind of mass movement-esque kind of things.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't mean to be too apologetic for them either. I mean, honestly, I think a lot of them just don't want to do the hard work of changing themselves. And it's so much easier to say, I'm a Christian and I'm an American. It's just it's so easy.
You were Epictetus today, but yes, yeah.
I mean, like, that's why it's just not rational. Like, in this way, I think Marx and Hoffer would be holding hands on this one. I mean, for example, Islam, the quote-unquote problem with Islam. I mean, Marx and Hoffer would tell maybe even the New Atheist movement, they'd say, well, you can have 1,000 Sam Harrises who write 1,000 books about why God isn't true, but it doesn't matter because it's not a rational decision. The people in Islamic countries are unemployed, angry, frustrated, and every day they see in their mass media images of luxury and success, and they don't have any hope of it at all in their lives. So good luck proving God doesn't exist. A lot of good that's going to do. What you really need to do is eliminate the conditions of a fanatic, and they're not doing that by writing books. I mean, Eric Hoffer might say something like that.
It's possible, yeah. Him and I agree. Like, him and Marx might actually come out along those lines. I mean, this is where I think, like, maybe I get where Hoffer's coming from about, like, intellectuals, but I do think, like, this fanatical energy can be redirected. Like, he even mentions this in this section. Like, there is possible to change over these movements from one to another. So I think, like, intellectuals can. I mean, these are the ones who are going to get out of poverty first. These are the people. These intellectual people are going to be the ones getting jobs, and they're moving people around, employing others. Right? This might create opportunities for change by getting in touch with these people, getting into these people's minds, getting into, like, of course not brainwashing them, but I mean, like, actually giving good arguments to get into their minds and, like, convince them otherwise. But yeah, I mean, other than that, like, these people on the lowest rungs, like, these people are going through the Glenn Beck rallies and saying, like, freedom. That's why I hate Obama. I mean, yeah.
But then you ask them, what freedom don't you have?
And they're like, all of them. They were all taken away. All of them.
Right. I mean, like, oh, my freedom not to hear anything I don't like.
Yeah.
They're like, well, that was never a freedom in the first place. So, can you name another one? And they don't have it. And I guess I guess I kind of am on the same page a little bit here. I mean, I know Sam Harris has to deal with all the time about atheism and I know they're going to be extreme Marxists and liberals that make this argument too. But there is a point to it, I think, right? I mean, some of these people, I mean, if you look at those movies, I mean, there's no discussion going on there.
Yeah.
There's no rational discussion. There's angry people, and then there's that guy from New Left Media.
Yeah, yeah.
Who's like, all he's doing is asking questions and making them feel stupider. But he didn't change their minds. And, you know, maybe he'll change one person's mind or couple. But, I mean, I guess Eric Hoffer would just have to tell him it's just not rational, and you have to stop thinking like that. I don't know. And I have to admit, I'm kind of there. I'm kind of there. I mean, just like in Japan too, when they make fun of otaku, right? Like, oh, you evil otaku that are watching all this anime and reading comic books, and you geeks and you losers. Oh my God, we hate you so much. Die, die, die. And, the media makes fun of them like there's no tomorrow. You think that's going to actually make them go away? You think that, like, making fun of them will make them go away? I mean, I always ask people that. Like, was the problem that they weren't criticized enough? You think that was it? Maybe what a good mass movement has to be is a mass movement that's focused in the direction of giving people more possibilities for their life.
Yeah.
The direction of openness. And that's the only way I can come up with a definition of a mass movement that's going to be good. That's going to, it might take a kind of fanaticism to do it, but it's going to lead to a new era when people can be who they want to be.
Yeah, I mean, this is where like things like these legitimate political movements, like getting voting rights, things. I mean, like these are causes that individuals can't handle. They can't do themselves, and they need to band together for. I also thought, just on a later point, like I thought it was kind of interesting in Hoffer, just coming off of Epictetus kind of going on and on about how caring about externals will kind of make your life go crazy. It'll make you frustrated. It'll make you hate life. And I thought it was really cool that Hoffer kind of pointed out also some of these rich guys, these really, really rich guys at the top, they're kind of secretly aware of the fact that, like, they believe their success, what they define as success, which is externals, external wealth, not character, not progress in some kind of moral realm. They know this is like all hanging on a thread, right? So I guess if you care about externals, right, when you become a rich guy, it's time to be a conservative, right? It's time to be mega conservative, right? And I mean, that's painfully true so much, though, isn't it? Like, these people get like mega bucks and they're like, well, I got mine. That means the world's in a good place. I'm just going to keep the world as it is. I mean, it's a weird, in a way, like he kind of points, in a way, it's almost like a lack of confidence in themselves, or like they don't consider their character the root of their confidence. They consider their success in the world the foundation of their confidence, and that needs to stay, right? So they're even these guys, these super wealthy, are still trapped in a way.
Yes, the fundamental problem hasn't, well, according to Epictetus, hasn't been solved, right? I'm willing to go a little bit further and say, well, people are allowed a certain amount of dignity and pride, actually. Or at least I think we can give them that much.
Yeah.
But it's just they're playing with fire, like every time they do this, like even in Japan now, when the Conservative Party kind of stirs up nationalist feelings here to get their bills passed, right? Even bills that the conservatives don't like TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, and things like that. To get that voting base, they'll stir up a little bit of nationalism, and they're going to see that they're dealing with something that's not totally in their control. They're going to regret it, because these are people that are very angry and frustrated with their lives, right? I mean, the people on 2 Channel are not teenagers. People on 2 channel and these bulletin boards in Japan are people in their 30s and 40s.
Yeah.
It's the average age. So that means they're angry. I mean, like, in a scary way. Angry people. And if you stir them up enough, you don't know what's going to happen. So he's playing a dangerous game when he's kind of stirring the pot, even though he's not one of them. He's like one of these neoliberals, Abe. He's one of these neoliberal trade people, and he's stirring the pot of old world conservatism.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be in for a surprise one of these days. Maybe he knows. I don't know. It's kind of scary.
I agree. I'm starting to see, only starting, but starting to see through some of this.
I mean, like, this is what this is what I can't stand about, well, Americans liberals too, but Japanese liberals, they just don't get it. They just don't get it that, like, sometimes you have to sacrifice your principles. Like, so much of the energy in Japan, or at least the frustrated energy, if you will, is being swept up by the nationalists here now. They're winning score after score of followers, right? They're getting new people all of the time. And the Japanese liberal base is dying, and they've been dying since the 60s. They haven't had a single victory since, as far as I can tell. I mean, maybe the Communist Party is sweeping up a few people, but wow, good luck. You don't even they don't have any presence anywhere, except for on loud cars that zoom by sometimes. I mean, like, there's going to have to be a time when they realize, like what I was saying before about liberals not understanding that people need pride before they need anything else sometimes, which is crazy, but it's true. Maybe it's not crazy, but it's true. It's certainly true, I think. I mean, they're going to have to realize that the Japanese Communist Party is going to have to be a little bit chauvinistic, and that's okay. They're going to have to say, Japan is great, vote for the Communist Party. They can't be like, well, Japan as a nation state itself should be dismantled, right? Everything that Japan has stood for all of history sucks. We hate all of you. Good night, everyone. See you, right? Well, that ain't gonna work, my friends, right? I mean, they have to be like one of the guys at the Glenn Beck rally. He was holding an American flag and critiquing Glenn Beck at the same time. At least have that much guts. At least be able to hold up the Japanese flag and take it back from them. Take it back from the conservatives. And, you know, I guess American liberals kind of figured this out a little bit. Oh, you know, not much, but they kind of figured it out. Japanese liberals, or at least the far left here, just can't. I mean, all they talk about the flag is dismantling the nation state, tearing down the flag, getting rid of the emperor. I mean, okay, if you want to do that in the long run, okay, I guess, but, like, for God's sakes, give people something to believe in. You just can't tear down all of their life and say, okay, like, throw down the mic like you're a rapper or something. Like, you know, subscribe, right? Well, no one's going to subscribe when you're throwing down the mic. Right? Don't give something give something for them to believe in, to dream about. Tell them that Japan, like, even if it's a lie, like the conservatives make a lie, they create a fictional, you know, wonderful Japanese past. Why can't the liberals create a fictional Japan of the past that was all inclusive? That was, I mean, in the past, the Japanese poor did revolt. They did have a powerful labor base.
There were many movements and demonstrations, and yes, I think there's really fertile ground for some kind of liberal movement here that doesn't exist. Right? I mean, especially with all this Kizuna stuff.
Yeah.
God, that could be so played to far left conclusions. You tell me Marx wasn't a romantic? Come on.
Yeah. And that's what, sometimes in America we're kind of good at that. I mean, sometimes the Democrats are kind of getting it, like, oh, okay, well, this is going to sound really cynical. We'll thank God, even though, you know, God's really not part of the nation state anymore, right? But we'll play the game. Play the game for now, because people need things to believe in. This sounds like evil. This sounds like, you know, New World Order-y here, but it's not. You know, it's not that. All I'm saying is, liberals need to understand that people need something to believe in. It's not the beautiful communist paradise anymore, because after the fall of the Soviet Union, that dream is dead. And if they have no dreams to give to anyone, liberalism will fail.
Which actually he mentions in here. about giving hope rather than discussing problems. Yeah, I guess the left in Japan, like, I don't know. I'm searching. I really am. I'm trying to find where the force of their message is, and I haven't succeeded yet.
Even if they don't have a message, they need good propaganda.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, they could do so much. They could talk about inclusiveness and a kind of different kind of, I don't know, the rights of the workers, for God's sake. I mean, like, the workers are being crushed here in Japan. Now let's talk about, like, Article 9 of the Constitution all the time. Well, no. Right? Okay, you don't have to talk about Article 9 all the time.
Wait a second. Japan might be asked by the United States to maybe send some support to a war.
Oh my God!
We cannot discuss these 20-hour days some people are working. That's got to go on the back burner because Japan might be asked to maybe participate in maybe a war the U.S. might be fighting.
I mean, it's that stuff. That's the stuff that I guess I kind of want to finish by saying is that, like, what Eric Hoffer didn't know about fully because he didn't own one was TV. And the power of TV to corrupt dialogue, the political dialogue. And when it comes to Glenn Beck and Jon Stewart and all these people now, it's not a cult of ideas. It's a cult of personality. Well, Glenn Beck's a hero. Glenn Beck says so it must be true. What issues do you want to fight? I don't know. What is Jon Stewart saying? I don't know. I just like Jon Stewart. Well, that's just the cult. I mean, Jon Stewart is trying to tell everyone this, but they won't listen. Like, it's a cult of personality that talks about non-issues, and it stirs up false controversies, like, oh my God, America is being taken over by Mexicans or something. It stirs up a non-issue, as opposed to talking about actual, legitimate, concrete issues, which are boring.
Yeah,
like, it's too boring.
Notice this. I think a lot, even more. It's a more focus in Colbert too. It's like, who's hating on me this week, right? The story's about him always, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a cult of personality that's built upon entertaining stories that entertain you, and that's enough to create fear and anger. I mean, stories that are interesting are stories that make you angry or oversimplify the issue, that don't provide all sides. And television, it's kind of funny. Even television isn't a good medium to discuss politics in. Think of YouTube. Oh my God, the longest a video can be is like 5 minutes, and then if it's after that, people are like, too long, didn't watch. Well, okay, I guess.
That explains why we have so many viewers.
I know.
Yeah. Thank you very much for watching this.
It's totally the method to be discussing philosophy is a computer screen. Via a computer screen, right? Of course.
Okay, our philosophy is very flat and two-dimensional.
That's how you imagine philosophy, right? Sitting in front of a computer, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Of course, right? I mean,
it's kind of what Socrates was doing.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Epictetus might slap me, but I mean, there's possibilities here. I mean, a university lecture is kind of this format, I guess, right? You look at what could be a screen with a professor in front of you. But, I mean, just when you sit down, the computer is just filled with so many other things. I mean, when the professor's boring, you can't click on another part of him, right, to access a more fun joke or something, whereas that's not the case with a computer.
I do. There's a kind of actually there was a might be getting off on a tangent here, but there's a book by a guy named Yoro Takeshi in Japan here. He wrote about. He's a university professor, and he talked about how he thinks his theory is his students think he is a TV.
They do.
So and they do. I think they do. And so because he used to get really upset when students were talking in class. But then one day he kind of came to this revelation. He said, like, that they think I'm a TV, so when I get boring, they think they can just, like, turn the channel and talk to their friends, as though I'm not a person, right? And then just so he said after that he made a concerted effort to address the students, like, individually. I kind of shock them by coming through the screen a little bit and touching them, and according to him, it kind of blew their minds a little bit, and they they're talking reduced because they were talking to an actual person.
A communication problem in Japan?
No,
You've got to be kidding me.
no, not at all.
Okay.
Not at all. That's probably just
Unheard of.
really rare. It's a rare
Yeah.
case. Yeah. No.
It's not as if they have entire TV shows devoted to this. No. I mean, that's a really good method. I like that. Everything he says, I think he's totally 100% right on. And yeah, you got to break the barrier. You got to reach out and touch someone. Oh, I am that old. Anyway.
Wow. Yes.
I am that old. That's, I guess, all I wanted to say. I mean, there's not much to be. We can't say that much until we get further into the book. But I mean, I guess the thing is, like Nietzsche said, there's only two ways to solve a problem: change the world or change yourself. And we're going to see what Eric Hoffer has to say about people that want to change the world, even though all they have is a stomach ache. So we'll see.
Yeah.
I'm very interested into. I want to think more about what a good and bad mass movement could possibly be. But other than that, I think that's
the point he made about just really short. He made about immigration, like how immigration can be a kind of replacement for a mass movement. I almost kind of imagined like maybe you could consider YouTube a kind of immigration.
Yeah.
Like when you go online, you become reborn. You have like an online persona, right?
Yeah.
Or even as a gamer, you kind of become reborn in your net play, right? You kind of you get rid of that terrible past and job and stuff.
I like that.
So maybe people kind of they treasure their time on gaming and on the internet so much because it gives them this chance to escape and be reborn.
That's what I was thinking. Like that, it's not only. I mean, what if I were trying to expand Hoffer and say it's not only just fanatics? I mean, but what if there's like a low-level phenomenon like this just occurring all the time? Yeah. It's just that when it comes to fanatics, it's so easy to see. But when it's low-level stuff, I mean, low-level stuff, religion, reborn, new reborn Christians and gaming and things like that. I mean, it's just kind of ways to escape a frustrated life on a very, very small scale.
So yeah, I just thought. I mean, I want to kind of follow this point through the book a little bit, and I know when I came on YouTube, I was reborn. Look at me.
Yeah, you're totally.
I'm golden. Yeah.
You're reaching out.
No one knows about my secret past, my secret terrible, terrible past.
Yeah, you were so crazy.
Yeah.
All those arrests.
Yeah, and all that killing.
Yeah, all the killing.
All the killing.
So much.
Yeah. Best not to say more though. We should finish the video before you find out who I really am.
Yeah. It's a very dangerous man.
Because it's not a boring guy sitting alone reading all day. It's not it. That is not it. It was a really dangerous guy.
Yes. Oh, wow. Okay. Well, we're on the verge of something really, 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 really terrible. I won't say what is really, really terrible. So I guess for next time, we're going to push much, much further into Eric Hoffer's book and actually get into the meat of it next time. All right. So until next week.